This is Byron O'Neal for Comic Book Yeti, sitting down with the creator of the new Christmas horror comedy, X-Machina, right?
That's right, X-Machina.
Yeah. So live on Kickstarter now. Steve, welcome. Thanks for hanging out with me today and joining me to talk about your book.
Having me. Thank you for looking at our comic. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to really talk Kickstarter, really talk about the holiday season that we got going right now.
Well, I'm a backer. This book looks pretty wild, I got to admit. I'll also throw in, I'll pitch myself, that the project was my holiday feature on Kickstart My Heart, my YouTube show. So I already love it. But you need to give me your elevator pitch for the folks who haven't heard about it yet.
Absolutely. So for those watching at home on this great show with Byron, X-Machina is what can Santa save Christmas from a robot uprising? So it's in our comic. It's the year 2045. Santa has had it. He's ready to retire. He's ready to kind of take the old hat and put it away. His wife left him for the abominable snowman, and he decides to give his Christmas magic to a Mark Zuckerberg type of character. And he takes the magic, and they make an app that measures your naughty and niceness, basically, right? So of course, the app becomes sentient, and Santa has to fight robots to save the day.
It's amazing. So this is kind of a different sort of gear for you to work with a co-creator, as I understand it.
Yes.
So you're working with Misty Graves, right?
That's right.
Right. So did you guys meet actually the first time on her podcast, The Long Box of Darkness, when she was interviewing you, or?
Yes, that's actually how we met. It's funny how things fall into place. So me and Misty met on Long Box of Darkness. She was interviewing me about slowpokes, and we just had a good vibe going. And I was like, "Oh, we should talk and figure something out. Maybe we could do a comic together or something like that." And we just always kind of kept that in the back of our minds. So just checking up on each other, seeing how each other are doing. We were talking about stories and what could we do. So I had an idea for like an evil elf story, but it was kind of similar to Slowpokes, where it's like, here's this thing that is not scary, and you make it scary. She had an idea where it's kind of like a Twilight Zone story where you type your wish into Google, and then it happens, but in like the worst way possible, kind of like a search engine. Like you'll type your Christmas wish in. So I was like, why don't we take those two ideas of evil elves, or like an evil type of Christmas thing, and we mix it with your technology search engine idea, and that's how X-Machina was born. And it's been a blessing and just really an awesome experience working with Misty, because she's we're not strangers anymore, but we were complete strangers. It could have gone off the rails. It could have been something where she hated me for all the ideas I had, or if I'm too goofy, we could have butted heads.
Sure.
But it was just it was a very, very positive experience. We went on the Google Meets, and I took what I learned from Comics Experience, which is the school that taught me how to write comics, and I was like, all right, let's do a brain dump of ideas. Best idea wins. It doesn't matter who it comes from, as long as it's best for the book, and just whittling it down and getting it down and putting it into a nice present, if you will, for everybody. But it was just taking those ideas, putting them together, and just figuring out what's best for the story.
So getting a little granular on that, how does your process of like co-creating look? So are you constructing timelines, and kind of break it down?
Timelines, and it definitely worked best to put deadlines on ourselves, just to make sure that we were getting that ball rolling, and putting in the time and making sure that we were on schedule for things. So I would start off with, okay, let's do character sheets first. Who are our characters? What do they look like? What do they do? How are they integral to the story? We'll do a story sentence of like what is the story we're trying to tell. We'll do a little synopsis of what this is, and then we'll do an outline, which is basically our map. So the outline, we'll whittle it down to a beginning, middle, and end, making sure that everything flows. And then once the outline is created, that's when we start writing panels. We did a 20 for this, so we just did like, all right, first 10 pages, we'll have it done by this time, and then we'll go back and like just make sure everything's good there, and then we'll finish the second second 10 pages, and then from there just keep editing and reading it to each other, making sure the voices sound correct. Like I would do the voices of some of our characters just to make sure it sounded like everybody had their own unique and distinct personality, and it worked. And here we are with X-Machina Kickstarter right now.
So after the success of your other Kickstarter projects, Slowpokes and Zombie Date Night, is it safe to say that horror is your genre of preference?
I do like horror, and just talking with Misty about the horror experience. Horror is the community is just so inviting. They'll take any idea that you have and they'll promote it. And if they love it, they'll promote it even further. So like with Fast Killer Sloths, that was an easier sell. Zombies are an easy sell. And now with Santa Fighting Robots, I was able to, we were able to take take the genre of horror and Christmas and comedy, and now we have a bunch of buckets where we can kind of play in. And we have a bunch of different genres we can kind of reach out to websites and podcasts and be able to talk about, Ex Machina. Because you could talk about the sci-fi element, you could talk about the Christmas element, you could talk about the comedy element, and you could talk about the horror element and the comic element. So I'm very appreciative of the horror community, and I'm going to continue there until I guess I get too goofy for them.
Or they kick you out.
Or they kick me out, or they kick us both out, or they accept Misty over me.
So what's the secret sauce to create that proper mix of a horror comedy mashup? Because that's kind of tough.
For me, it's just taking things, I guess, where you take two things that are scary and you mix them together, and if you're excited about it, I don't know if there's an exact recipe for success, but for me at least, like if you're excited about it, then 9 times out of 10, like that's a better pitch than just like, all right, I'm going to just do this random robot comic. I'm going to do this. It's like, all right, Santa Fighting Robots is something I would want to see. Like if I went to a movie, I'd be like, that's funny. I need to go check that out. So I use that barometer to create things. Same thing with Slowpokes. I was like, oh, if sloths became fast, like I would want to see that. If zombies interrupted a first date and a grandma with a chancleta is fighting these zombies, I would want to see that. And then with Santa, like, who wouldn't want to see a Clint Eastwood Santa trying to save Christmas from a robot uprising?
Indeed, who wouldn't?
Yeah,
I'd pay to see that, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. Just even based on curiosity, because listen, with all these Kickstarters, I've been very lucky that people have liked my work, which is very cool and very awesome to see, and I appreciate that, and everybody who backed, I appreciate you. But it's selling the concept. Right now, they don't know how the words are. They just know the art, and they know that the story is something that they would want to check out. Which is, you're opening the door. You want to keep getting those people back into the door.
So touching on the art, you've worked with several different artists, on these different projects. For this one specifically, you were, putting the team together. You and Misty are working. And so how did you bring in Lane? How did you find them?
So for all these comics, I go through Comics Experience. They have their own creative services program. And I work with Paul Allor and Andy Schmidt. And they have kind of a stable of great artists and inkers and colorists and letterers that are just under that people they know, people that they're friends with, people they know that are reliable, people they've worked with in the past. So for me, going through Comics Experience is just amazing because I can go through their creative services program, pay what I need to pay for that, and then they'll give me a range of artists to look through, and I'll be able to pick from there. And I trust their judgment, and it's worked well so far. So I was able to find Lane at the due to Paul Allor. He gave a recommendation for them, and we were just like, this is perfect. This is the perfect style. Lane works very quickly. Lane is super talented, and Lane is just somebody to look out for in the world of comics.
Yeah, there's such a unique style there. I think you saw the commission because I love this style.
Yeah, the Transformer stuff is amazing. I'm blown away, and the fact that they're able to work on something like this for me, where it's just like, oh, I want to do Santa Fighting Robots, and they just put all their heart and soul into it. I am forever grateful. So Lane Lloyd, look them up. great artist. Please support them. Please support them. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. I wanted to make sure I got my pronouns down too before
Yes,
we
me too. So I'm just making sure that Lane gets all the love that they deserve.
So how much direction did you give Lane when creating those visual elements? Was it a hands-on or a hands-off kind of approach?
So for at least for me, for the comics, I'll write, what the story is and what I want to see out of it, but I let the artists do what they want because they're the artists. They know better than me. They know better than if there's anything that I have a problem with, I'll say it. But with Lane, no notes, really nothing that I can say that we were like, oh, that isn't right. The whole thing, like they got the mood down perfect.
So is Lane doing the lettering and the color work as well as the art? Okay.
Triple threat, if you can believe that. Like I can't believe that. Like that requires talent and just amazing.
Well, there's so many great holiday concepts out there. Like in comics. Like for mine, my all-time favorite is I don't know, I'm probably a little older than you are, but the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I have not.
Oh, classic. Amazing.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
I mean, Misty and I, we read the EC comics from a long time ago with the Christmas horror, and those were just so amazing, and just the style, incredible. So, just to live up to those type of comics, especially in the horror comedy space. But it is a bit of a challenge because when people hear Santa in comics, I don't know if they jump up to be like I want to check that out. So like for us, that has been a little bit of a challenge. But I think once people get to see X-Machina and what we can do with it, I think people will get excited for future issues, hopefully.
Well, do you have personal favorites, whether they're comic or film, that might have influenced this book? I mean,
so I mean, definitely. Let's see here. I mean, definitely Terminator, obviously for robots. Yeah. Definitely Ultron was part of it. Definitely like just the Santa folklore of just like all the characters. Like we made sure to look into. Like, all right, what do we need? We need elves, right? You need a gingerbread man. And I was like, you need a abominable snowman. You need all these different things because that's what makes this world come together. But I love Home Alone 2. I love Christmas movies. A Christmas Story. But just that redemption. I mean, we also looked into Westerns too, which we didn't even think about until we were done. We were like, oh my God, we created a Christmas Western. Like, that's nuts. Because I always pictured like Clint Eastwood as Santa, like where it's like Clint Eastwood is just this guy. This guy is part of our childhood, and he's lived for so long delivering gifts and presents, where he's changed. You know what I mean? He's seen it all, and he's just tired. He's just tired and rugged. But we hope that in Ex Machina he turns it all around in order to save Christmas.
So, in a way, was Ex Machina easier or harder to write with the world building aspect? Because, fast sloths, that's kind of new, right? Novel concept. But Christmas, you've got a lot to work with. It's already built in.
So, and it's funny too, because I always thought with comics where fast killer sloths, like that's the bar. Like I can be as bad or as good as that. Like, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, whatever I put out, it'll be like, all right, fast color slots. It's very surface level. It's not as deep as some of the other things. But Zombie Date Night, I wanted to show. Like a lot of people were like, oh, I want Slowpokes too. I want this, and I'm like, I kind of want to show that I can do other things before I go back to that well. So that's why we're seeing Zombie Date Night. That's where we're seeing Ex Machina. But just taking those characters, this comic is way deeper than we thought it would be. At first, we were like, oh, we're just having fun, and it's Santa fighting robots, and that'll be the premise. But now, we went into the character histories, we went into the setting, we went into like, okay, it's futuristic, it's 2045. There's a global warming component. There's like a police state component, because listen, if Santa was evil, we'd be in a police state. Because he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. Like that's kind of creepy. That's kind of a horror type of thing. So we took those things where it's like, all right, everybody thinks this thing with Santa is a cute thing, but it's like if you look closer, it's like it's kind of creepy. Like same thing with like Elf on a Shelf. Elf on a Shelf is
terribly
the most horrifying thing.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to I love the Jewish version of Elf on a Shelf where there's mensch on a bench, and I was like, that's a great
I saw one that was Trooper on a Pooper. That was my personal favorite.
Trooper on a Pooper is good
Star
too.
Wars, yeah.
But yeah, just taking that, there's so much to build from, and we took from people we know and stories we love about ourselves and our experiences, just in the world, and we took all those things and melded them together to create this great thing called X-Maschina.
So with a couple of successful ones under your belt now, when you're putting together reward tiers, is there anything that in the past you've like, okay, this hits, I need to do that again? Or have you tried something different with this? Or have you got kind of a thing going? You're like, this is good. This is my lane.
Definitely have gotten a kind of a rhythm going because I'm very lucky to have very talented friends. So like the guy who does my t-shirt, his name is Vertebrae 33, and he's done stuff for Hot Topic. He's done stuff for, he just did Rick and Morty, just did Star Wars. I was like, that's a no-brainer because, he's a friend and he's somebody that like I trust very well with him. Another one is my friend Brian DeNono, who does our logos, and his logos are just so excellent that I have to keep going with that, right? I have a friend, Blake Rains, who is a singer-songwriter. He produces songs in his house. He just has a studio and he just plays around and he makes hits. He makes something that's great. So I had him for Slowpokes and I had him for X-Machina. There's an official holiday theme song that everybody could check out on the Kickstarter. Misty is super talented. Misty, as well as she could write, she could draw. So she was able to design Christmas cards based around our comic, and I was like, that's a no-brainer because it's Christmas. So just taking these things and then also adding that horror element where you can get killed in the book if it gets funding.
Yep.
There'll be a second one, and then you can get killed, in the most holiday way possible by us, which I think is a no-brainer. If I was a comic fan, I would always love that because I know that they make, a lot of Kickstarter creators do the like, oh, you could be a extra in the comic. But like, I always thought that like, yeah, that's okay. But like, if you can get killed in a comic, that's your legacy. That's immortalized in that. So I always want to make sure that people are having fun with the comics that I produce. And again, it's just trial and error, seeing what works, what doesn't work. And, posters and t-shirts always work. Digital copies always work, physical copies, signed copies. But yeah, if anybody has any ideas or tell me what you want, I'm happy to listen.
Well, you might be surprised that this skinny beanpole of a guy might end up in there just like tangentially, because hearing you talk about that, the other day, Lane posted on his Twitter, it's like, hey, I need some like profiles, so send a selfie. And I was just like, okay, I'll just fire it off. So who knows?
Yeah, you might be an X-Machina, or you might be in one of Lane's future projects too. But having Lane draw you, I think that's a great selling point.
So I had a note in there about Blake. So I didn't know. I listened to the X-Machina soundtrack song.
Yes.
So he did one for Slowpokes as well, because that I haven't heard. Okay.
Yes. So that if you go on YouTube and just type in Slowpokes theme song, or if you go on the Kickstarter, he created a Halloween type of song that, again, all these things are just like me joking around and having fun. My friends have just been so amazing with their creation process that everything is like way better than it needs to be. So like a Slowpokes Killer Sloth song, you're like, oh, what could that be? He put a hook to it. We wrote the song together, and just like I cannot express like how grateful I am. I could send it to you, or we could talk about it later. But it's just we got something here, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice little piece there that just adds this wonderful, in this case, the holiday element to it.
Yes, holidays always made sense to me because I was like, all right, we need a Christmas song. We need something where, it's futuristic, but it's still Christmas. And even if you don't know what X-Machina is, you could listen to this song and be like, okay, that's cool. We want the snow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, shout out to Blake, because when I listened to it, my anticipation was down here and it was way up here.
I think that's been my gimmick now, where it's like, all right, people think that it's this, but it's something completely different.
Yeah. The delivery on that execution, yes, I was very surprised.
Blake Rains, if you he's gonna be a big star one day. He's so talented, and I'm very lucky to just grow up with these people. You know what I mean? They're right down the street.
So are there plans to revisit this concept down the road? Will we see the Easter Bunny version,
Yes. I mean, we've definitely talked about what the future holds for Ex Machina. We're hoping we get funded. If we get funded, then that has a better chance of happening because
Sure.
That means people will like it. People will be interested for, whenever we do the next one, whether it's next year or the following year. So yeah, if you like my comic, you want to see more of them, just keep backing and keep supporting, spreading the word. If you can't back, that's okay too. Just, retweet, spread the cheer. Somebody who might want it, that's all I ask.
Well, I'm gonna drop a little heat here. We're gonna get a little controversial, but so I'm assuming you've heard a little bit about Kickstarter and some of the transitions that they're talking about.
Yes.
So as a creator with a live project, just trying to get your temperature, kind of how you're feeling about it.
Yeah. So with the blockchain stuff on Kickstarter, I mean, it's tough because I don't want anybody to hurt the environment or anything, especially with these NFTs and things like that. But it's just tough. I really hope the future landscape for Kickstarter comics is a positive one and not a negative one, because so many different creators are on this thing. And if one bad move by Kickstarter or whatever you use, whether it's I think there's We Want Zoop, that was another one.
Yep.
Or I know there's an Indiegogo. I know there's like GoFundMe and stuff like that. One wrong move for these things can kind of like just take everything off the board, and I don't want that because I love creating independent comics. It is my goal is, I mean, listen, I'm always down to listen for publishers or Marvel, DC, whatever. But like I'm having such a blast creating comics, and I would hate for that to take a hit, and we just never, it never works out ever again. Yeah. So I hope Kickstarter listens to, the people, and I hope they figure out there's got to be some kind of happy medium that we can do where, it works out for everybody. I'm not really sure what that is, but it's a huge platform. I mean, look at Keanu Reeves was on it, and. Yep. I got to thank Keanu because he put that Berserker project right before Slowpokes came out, and like maybe that helped.
You never know.
You never know.
Visibility in this world. I mean,
exactly. But I mean, we also have only one world, and we can't have all these things where it's just destroying the world. Like the NFTs, like that's there's got to be a better way to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's got to be a better way where it's not taking energy, or it's not. You know what I mean? There's got to be. But as we go forward, maybe there are other solutions. I'm just not sure.
Yeah,
maybe by the time we hit 2045, we'll figure it all out.
And then we've got to worry about Santa fighting robots.
Yes, Santa fighting robots, year 2045. Watch out for that.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on today that we haven't yet?
Let's see. What are you reading? What are you reading these days?
Me. So I go through a process. Like I try to read something every night. I try to post on Twitter, like tonight's reading. So for me, lately it's been Deadly Class because I just kind of missed that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that I actually missed. I've just recently kind of gotten back into comics. My first 3 jobs were in comic book shops, and that was 1992. So wow. Yeah, that's a while ago. But I got out of it. I was on the road working with rock bands for years. And while I was doing that, I kind of just dropped out. So got this diagnosis, long story short, autoimmune thing. So I used to be a gardener, can't garden the same way I used to because you can't be outside in the sun with lupus, blah, blah, blah. Wow. Anyway, so I'm looking for new avenues and to entertain myself, things to get into, right? So comics had always been this like sort of safe place, reminded me of being a kid, always was fun, used to go to conventions, blah, blah, blah. So got back into it, and I missed a whole lot of things. So I'm going back and trying to reread some of these series. Somebody recommended Deadly Class. I'm going to go check out the TV series. So yeah, it looks great.
I mean, that's the tough thing about comics. Like I'm still brand new. I used to read comics, growing up, Spider-Man, like Wizard, Green Lantern Kyle Rayner was my guy, like in Green Lantern. And I always tried to keep up with it, but I was kind of like a Fairweather fan at that point. I was like, all right, I feel like there was just so much going on that I didn't know where to start. I did, especially in college and things like that. Now it's a lot easier with like Marvel Unlimited and like DC, and Comixology and all those things. It's easier to read them. But I'm just very happy to be involved in this thing. Like I might have a chance to write something cool one day, or write something more substantial. Like I'm still brand new, still learning, and still trying to figure it all out. But yeah, I missed all that stuff, and I'm trying to go back to it. Like Wizard Magazine, I loved Wizard Magazine. I thought that was so cool, and I thought, and I know that there's magazines now, or there's websites and things like that, but and podcasts, which is great, like this one, or video podcast.
Yeah.
So, and I'm also excited for cons again. I can't wait to go to my first Comic Con as a creator. Like I don't know what that's going to be like. That was the plan this year, but with COVID and everything, we were more careful.
Sure.
About everything. But yeah, it's these are exciting times, and I'm excited to be on this comic journey. Shout out to Misty Graves for just being a good partner. Shout out to Lane Lloyd. Shout out to anybody I've worked with in comics. Shout out to anybody who's helped me doing the promo video or the cover, or the logo, all the that stuff. So I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate everybody for backing and supporting all the comics we're doing.
Well, I'm a backer, and I think this project will definitely get funded. We're doing what we can to help it get funded.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, we're almost there. I think we're 68% funded, which is not bad for I think it's been 2 weeks. So I'm keeping plugging along and figuring out what everybody wants. If anybody wants a certain thing or wants to know more about the comic, hit me up. I know you can find me on Twitter at the Steve Urena and Instagram the Steve Urena. If you want to follow Misty Graves, you can follow her at Misty Graves Comics on Instagram. And if you want to follow any of our projects that we have, you could follow X-Maschina 1, both on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, we'll definitely drop some links and comment.
Yes, definitely. That's a mouthful.
Oh no, it's all good. Like that's a requisite. I make sure to like try to include all that stuff in there, because people will be like, oh, I can't remember all this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I do recommend for creators, like if you want to create a Kickstarter, just do something that you would want to see. So like if you're a buyer, and you would be a buyer for your own comic, I would imagine. What would you want to see? What would you want to create? What would get you excited about a Kickstarter? What would get you excited about a project where you would give your money to? Because that's what I've been using for all these comics, and so far so good. Because for me, if it makes me laugh or it makes me like, oh, we got to do that, then most likely somebody else would want to check it out too.
So what are you seeing out there that is exciting you, like that other people are doing? Like,
I'm looking at the Kickstarters. Hold on. Let me look at my list here, because I do have a good list. But there's a lot of cool stuff. The Color of Always, I thought looked very interesting. There was a Kickstarter a few months ago. It's like Off Into the Sunset, where it's all a Western anthology, and I thought that was interesting. Big fan of Mario. I hope I'm saying his name right. Mario Candelaria. He made a comic that I'm very excited to sink my teeth into for Kickstarter. It's called Fogline, where somebody gets away with murder, and then somebody's doing a podcast about it years later and is starting to dig up things about the murder. And I'm like, that is just such a good concept. Like that's such a crazy concept. I like Dope Cat on Kickstarter. So shout out to them. Hold on, let me take a look at this here. But there's never a shortage of creativity. Producing the End of the World anthology by Soda and Telepaths, they've always been very kind to me and supportive. So shout out to them. Yeah, I think those are some of the few ones that I've seen that I really like. But it's just there's something for everybody on Kickstarter.
Oh yeah.
I also think Kickstarter should start their own comic imprint. I think they would probably make a good amount of money.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, have you encountered anything because I've talked to a lot of people, and they're saying printing. It seems to be a thing that's people are pulling their hair out over lately. So
yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky. I go through ONS Printing, which is another an imprint of Comics Experience, which is again why I keep using them, because they do such top quality work. But Zombie Date Night was supposed to come out, at least the physical copies, a lot sooner than it did. I just got the physical copies, I think, 2 weeks ago. So and we ended our Kickstarter in I think August or maybe August or September. And so I was planning on having those for around Halloween, but it got pushed back even further. So I know that the supply chain is all kinds of messed up. So I'm hoping, everything kind of works out by the time X-Machina comes out. But if not, you'll always have the digital copy first, and then once everything's ready to go, I will send out X-Machina, because I never want to make anybody think that like I'm taking their money or I'm hustling or anything like that, because I know that's a hard thing, because some people go on Kickstarter and don't have anything until 2 or 3 years later. Like, I don't want to do that. My goal is to always have the comic done, at least the art done, before the lettering, because the lettering takes less time than the art.
Sure.
Before I do a Kickstarter, because I just don't want to get ahead of myself. And this was a good lesson as well, where it's like, all right, maybe I'll wait until I have a little bit more of the comic before I do a Kickstarter or something like that. But for Ex Machina, I needed to get it out by Christmas. I was like, all right, this needs to happen. Like, this Kickstarter needs to run through December.
So Lane's work is, except for lettering, done at this point?
It's getting there. I know that the coloring, I think they are almost done with coloring the comic, and then the lettering is next.
Okay.
So, but Lane works very quickly, and I have no doubt in my mind that by the time the Kickstarter is over, we should be very close to finishing.
All right. Well, thanks, Steve, for joining me tonight to talk about Ex Machina. It's live on Kickstarter now. We'll make sure to drop links so everybody can check everything out. Certified cool by me, for whatever that's worth.
Listen, Kickstart My Heart. Make sure you watch that. That's a great idea.
Well, yeah, I gotta admit, there's always that trepidation, with the news with Kickstarter, and I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah, I really hope that people. I hope they figure it all out, because if Kickstarter is done, what's next? I guess there'll be another crowdfunding platform and things like that. But I think people are so used to Kickstarter that if that goes away, or if that takes a hit, then that would be very catastrophic for creators.
Yeah, which is obviously my biggest concern with it all. But I think as long as people keep putting out quality work that people want to read, it will find a way.
Exactly. That's how I feel about my comics. At least, it's like, I want to do what I would want to do, and if anything comes from it, great. If nothing comes from it, that's fine too. It's an outlet to have fun and to be creative and to meet interesting people like you.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you joining me, man. And hope everybody enjoys the video. Steve's the best. And look for Ex Machina on Kickstarter.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Thank you for joining us today to watch this episode of Creator Chat. Make sure to check out our podcast, Into the Comics Cave, wherever you get your podcasts.